present to you President Bill Clinton.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know about you, but I think Dr. Seltzer did a great job. Let's give him another hand. That was a great speech. I'd like to thank President Spanier for welcoming me here, and State Representatives Mike Hanna and Scott Conklin. Mayor Wells, thank you very much. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence here of a person whose efforts are particularly important, the Democratic candidate for Congress, Mark McCracken, who is, nobody gave a chance when he started running, and now he's even in the polls against a 30-something-year Republican incumbent, and I want you to help him get elected too. 6 days from now. I am really glad to be back at Penn State. I love this place, and I said when I was here earlier this year that my main claim to fame is I married the only person ever to run for president who had both a father and a brother who played football for Penn State. It seems like now that it's campaign season, either Hillary or I, or both of us, are always out on Saturdays. She calls me sometime during the day and says, well, did Penn State win again? Did Penn State win again? So we congratulate you on that. And I think that Penn State's winning for the same reason that Obama's winning. Teamwork. Good teamwork. And look, I almost feel guilty giving this speech, except that the campaign asked me to come here, and I never pass up a chance to come to Pennsylvania or to come to State College. So I feel that I'm keeping those of you who are volunteers in this campaign away from doing what you ought to be doing. So I will be brief. The only way Senator Obama can lose this election is if people forget between now and Tuesday what it's about. Right? That's it. If people who are for him forget how important it is and don't show up, and people who still have some wiggle room in their heads forget what the stakes are and think they can vote their reservations or their resentments. And so I want to say you should focus on two things. Two things only. There's only two things you can do between now and the election. You can get the people that are already with us to the polls, and you can go hunt up some people who are still undecided, either in your community or anywhere in America on the internet, and make the case. I'm trusting you to do the first, and I'm going to tell you what I think you ought to say about the second. And let me say, you know, I have a reasonably unique perspective on this because I went to over 300 communities just in March, April, and May in America, 47 in Pennsylvania. I have seen America all over again at the grassroots level. I have been to about 100 countries since I left the White House. Doing the work I do around the world, I know what the rest of the world thinks about what we're doing when we do it. I have a good feel for this terrible financial crisis, both because I had responsibilities as president to deal with the economy and because I live in New York. But even more important, I never forget that I was raised in Arkansas. My presidential library is there, and that plus all these town meetings have given me a feel for how the economy is bearing down on ordinary American families. Here's what this election is about. You hire a president, in the words of the immortal words of the incumbent president, to be the decider-in-chief. And decisions have profound consequences. As we see, you could have 22.7 million jobs, or you could have 4. You could pay $600 billion down on the national debt, or you could double it in 8 years. You could reduce the number of people without health insurance, or you could double the price of health care and explode the number of people without insurance. You could move almost 8 million people out of poverty, or you could let 6 million fall in. Now, the job of the next president is to get the economy out of the ditch, restore stability to the financial system, and make things work for ordinary Americans again, and give poor people a chance to work their way into the middle class, swell the middle class, create enough jobs to raise wages, and the rich will do just fine. That's the job of the next president. The second thing the next president has to do is to restore America's standing in the world as the world's leading force for peace and prosperity and cooperation. Now, once you define the job, it's a lot easier to decide who to hire. 6 days from now, America's going to once again conduct the greatest job interview in the whole world and make a decision. That's what a presidential election is. It's a job interview. And if the job is to restore the economy, to stabilize the financial system, to regain our position in the world, and to do all that that entails, whether it's making sure that this money that Congress has appropriated to stabilize our financial system really works for ordinary Americans. Or, for example, we're going to have 2 million home mortgage foreclosures this year, and we're going to have 2.5 million next year unless we make sure that in stabilizing the financial system, we do something to keep those people in their homes who are working for a living, doing the best they can, and we'd all be better off if we can renegotiate their mortgages. That's the first thing you got to do. Then we have to create enough jobs in this economy to get incomes going up again. After rising $7,500 a year after inflation across all racial and regional lines in the 1990s, median family income has gone down $2,000 against inflation to the day I left office. Why? We haven't created enough jobs. As it happens, the only good way to do it in a hurry is to make a serious, sustained commitment to energy independence through a clean, efficient, modern energy economy. We've got to do something about health care. We are spending 16.5% of our income on health care now. Nobody else is spending more than 11%. Yet we're the only rich country in the world who can't figure out how to insure everybody. Every day I pick up the paper and I read another healthcare horror story. Big story in USA Today about all the states having to cut back on healthcare, and what are we going to do about lower-income working families whose kids have autistic conditions who can't be cared for now because the money's run out. Last week, 1 in 8 cancer patients not taking their medication on time because the money's ran out. But the money hasn't run out for the insurers in this crazy system we've got. So you can't bring the economy back unless you do the decent, humane thing and do something to reform health care. Since 1990, this is important here, all the census figures have shown us that every young American that gets at least 2 years of education after high school has better than a 50% chance of getting a job with a rising income. And every young American who doesn't has less than a 50% chance. Cost of college education up 75%, and they've tried their best to cut back on support for education. So I'll just go through this. Here's what I think. Having done that job, there are 3 things that matter. Number 1, do you have the right philosophy? Number 2, do you have the right policies? And number 3, can you make decisions and execute? Those are the things that matter. You're hiring somebody to get the economy going again, restore America's position in the world, and they need the right philosophy, the right policies, and the ability to decide and execute. That's it. That's what this election's about, and that's what you should talk to people about. Because once you do it, the answer screams out at you. You got it. And why? Look. Think about it. Our philosophy is, and Barack Obama has so powerfully articulated it in this election, that you have to grow the economy from the ground up, not from the top down. And if you have a strong middle class and poor people can get into it, everything else will take care of it. One box for Obama. Second thing, look at the policies. Look at the policies. His economic policy is better. His energy policy is better. His health care policy is light years better. His education policy is better. If Barack Obama's plan passes in health care, most people will be able to get health insurance for less money. 26 or 27 million more people will be insured. Over time, the cost, the ridiculous cost of financing this system will go down because it will be more efficient. If his alternative, if his opponent's policy were implemented, in the short run, a few more people would be insured, but more people would be forced into individual insurance plans, which, listen to this, have a one-way administrative cost of 29 cents on the dollar. That's just what the insurers spend. We're already spending 30 cents on the dollar for all administrative costs, and it's about to bankrupt America. Nobody else in the world spends this kind of money. Why? Because we don't have the right policies. Barack Obama has the right health care policy. And if you're worried about these kids with autism, if you're worried about your parents being able to afford their medication, whatever, we've got to stop subsidizing people, private insurers, to provide Medicare and letting them charge $10 billion more a year than it would cost if the government did it for everyone. And they say, oh, well, we give more services. They do, about $550 a year more, but they charge you $1,100 for it. Every one of you do any job for 100% markup, wouldn't you? Yeah. So he's got the best policies on health care. His policy will let every young American who is willing to do community service finance a college education, no ifs, ands, or buts, every single young American. And it will make America stronger at the grassroots level. I'm telling you, I know I sound like a broken record because I go around talking like this. You might as well just put a computer chip in me and let me talk, but I am telling you, the only rich countries that avoided becoming more unequal in this decade by creating more jobs and swelling incomes were those that made a serious commitment to fight global warming and become energy independent through the production of homegrown clean energy and energy efficiency technology. They are the only ones. And he's got the best plan on that. Okay. Check box 2 for Obama. Now let's get to the decision making. You got an interesting opportunity in this presidential election year that, at least in my experience, no voters have gotten. You got to see the candidates make not one but 2 presidential decisions because of this financial meltdown. Usually, you only get to see one. Who do they pick to be vice president? That's a presidential level decision that every candidate gets to make. So you get one insight, right? But this time, you got to see 2. How did they respond to the financial crisis? Now, I want to get into that, but let me just say, the Biden decision looks even better now. Why? Because the other thing that he's got a better policy on, Senator Obama, is how to bring the troops home from Iraq, how to pursue the war on terror, how to negotiate with our adversaries as well as our friends, and basically, he says we want a world with more partners and fewer adversaries, and we're going to have a strong military. We're going to rebuild the military, and by the way, we have to bring the troops home from Iraq to rebuild the military. You can't do it. But he says, military force will always be a last resort, not a first option. That is the right policy. That is the right policy. But the reason presidential decision number 1 looks even better now is that while Barack Obama's election will be greeted with celebration all over the world, they'll like it in Africa because his father was Kenyan. They'll like it in Asia because he spent some time as a child in Indonesia. They'll like it in other parts of the world because he seems to be like we're increasingly becoming more and more diverse. But the truth is, if he takes advantage of that anytime in the first month or so, we'll all be high. I mean, if he went to Jakarta 2 weeks after being inaugurated, just to speak to a rally of 1 million people, most of you would be mad, and you should be. Why? Because the economy's in the ditch. He's going to have to take the oath of office and almost run back to the Pennsylvania Avenue, down Pennsylvania Avenue to the White House and close the door and get this country out of the ditch, which means since we can't withdraw from the world, for the first 2 years of his presidency, the role of the vice president will be relatively more important even than it normally is, and Joe Biden is the best person he can ever pick to do that job in the world. So, that's decision number one. Now here's decision number two. Decision number two is how will they respond to the financial crisis? Now, it's not popular to say in the Democratic crowd, but the truth is they both did the right thing. Both the nominees, they went back and they knew that this was unpopular, that it stunk to high heaven, that it never should have come to this, and you could say, well, the heck with it, I'm walking away, I'm going to be against whatever they come up with, and I'm going to make some votes. So they both did the right thing, but here's the important thing. If you listen to the two debates, and I carefully did, who understood it better? Right? Who had a better grasp of what had to be done? Exactly. And this is really important. People used to make fun of me all the time when I was running in 92 saying I was a policy wonk, as if there was something demeaning about caring about understanding issues. We now know, I hope, that we need a president who wants to understand and who can understand. We need that desperately. But look, he didn't just show his intellectual brilliance in this process. He showed genuine leadership for this reason. And I know something about this because I was listening to it coming back at me. So this thing blows up, and the first thing he did was not say too much until he had talked to all of his advisors. Then he called all my economic advisors. Then he called Hillary, he called me, then he called a bunch of other people, Warren Buffett, Paul Volcker, all these people. And I said to myself, this is good, this guy understands, this is very complicated, and he wants to understand. How much have we suffered from people who did not want to understand? And the second thing was even more important to me. He said, okay, I got it now. Now, let's talk about what's right for America. And don't bother me about the politics. I'll figure out how to sell it once we decide what's right. Now, here's why you should like that. I must have made, at least 8 or 9 really pivotal decisions when I was president that were complicated. You had to make them in a hurry. And when that happens, it is almost never the case that what you should do will be popular on the day you have to do it. I remember 80% of the people were against me giving a loan to Mexico. And my young staffer said, are you crazy? We just lost the Congress. You're going to do this? I said, I certainly am, because a year from now, if we don't, when we have 2 million more illegal immigrants and we have drugs being handed out practically for free on the streets of El Paso, and America is coming apart, and everybody in Latin America hates our guts, what am I going to say? I'm sorry I did the wrong thing, but 80% of the people didn't want me to do the right thing. It's not what you hire a president. If you hire a president to win for America, and Barack Obama will win for America. And finally, it's not even enough to have the right philosophy, the right policies, and make good decisions. You have to be able to execute. Harry Truman once said that he was never sure anybody would do what he wanted to do, even if he issued an executive order. What's the evidence Barack Obama can execute? You, Exhibit A, right? The internet campaign, the unprecedented amount of donations, the millions of people who've been registered to vote. They think, he and his people think about how to do what it is you want to do. I'm telling you, I work all over the world, and the biggest problem today in the world is not corruption or stupidity or people being lazy. The biggest problem is all over the world, people cannot figure out how to turn their good intentions into positive changes in other people's lives. He has proved that he can do that by the campaign that has been run, and a lot of you helped to do it. So, that's my pitch to you. I want you to get on the phone, get on the internet, do whatever you can do. Find anybody that's still open. You can't do anything else now. There's just 6 days left. He can't lose unless people forget what the election's about. So remind our supporters and get them out there. Hillary and I are doing everything we can. And then remember, there are still people you can move. Still people you can stop from forgetting what the election's about. We've got to bring this economy back. We've got to restore our standing in the world. He's got the right philosophy. He's got the right policies. He has got the right capacity to make decisions. And he's got the right capacity to turn those good intentions into positive changes in the lives of American people all over the world. Bring it home. Thank you, and God bless you. Thank you.